Police found the 4-year-old's body in Lorton in Massey Creek under the old Colchester Road back on June 13, 1972.
When we opened the package, it was literally little specks, like razor stubble. And so the lab, Estrella in California, had said that normally they require at least 2 centimeters of hair to do testing.
2 family members of Carl Matthew Bryant stood on stage next to Fairfax County Police on Monday, clearly still overwhelmed by what they finally learned after more than 50 years.
On June 13, 1972, a local teen passerby in Lorton, Virginia, discovered the lifeless body of a young boy beneath a highway bridge. Police rushed to the scene, but no one on site could identify the child. He appeared to be an African-American boy between 3 and 6 years old. Investigators noted signs of trauma, and an autopsy soon confirmed the grim truth. The little boy had passed from blunt force injuries, and his passing was ruled a homicide. There were no obvious personal belongings or ID with him, and from the very start he was a mystery, a John Doe in police files. Officers searched missing persons reports, contacted neighboring jurisdictions, and canvassed the area for anyone who might recognize the boy, but no leads turned up immediately. It was as if the child had slipped through the cracks without anyone knowing his name. In the aftermath of the discovery, Fairfax County detectives worked tirelessly on the case. They carefully collected evidence from the scene and documented the boy's description, his clothing, approximate age and height, and any distinguishing figures, details that would be crucial for identification. The autopsy results immediately indicated foul play. Investigators treated the area as a crime scene, looking for anything that might point to a perpetrator, perhaps tire tracks, footprints, or an object that could have been the weapon. Who could have done such a thing to a child? Early theories focused on the possibility that the boy knew the assailant. In many child harm cases, the perpetrator is someone in the victim's family or caretakers. Detectives quietly checked local school records and knocked on the doors in the community, hoping to find out if any child had suddenly disappeared from a household. They also reached out to agencies beyond Virginia, considering that the boy might have come from out of state. By the end of 1972, leads had dried up. The case went cold and the unknown child was laid to rest without a name, his headstone marking him only as a John Doe and the date he was found. For over 50 years, the bridge in Lorton and the unsolved mystery of the boy's passing loomed in the background of Fairfax County's cold cases. Generations of detectives inherited the case file. In the 1980s and 1990s, as national databases for missing persons improved, detectives would continue to revisit the case to see if they could find a match. Still nothing. Some investigators suspected that fear or guilt kept the boy's disappearance out of the spotlight, perhaps a guardian who knew more than they admitted. Others theorized the child might have been from a transient or marginalized family that feared involvement with police, or even, as mentioned, that he was not local to Virginia at all. Throughout the 2000s, advances in forensic science offered new hope. Fairfax County's cold case unit began reviewing old evidence with modern techniques. In 2003, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, became involved in the cold case. They developed and distributed a forensic facial reconstruction to illustrate what the unidentified child might have looked like in life. Around that same time, the FBI managed to extract a partial DNA profile from strands of hair collected during the original 1972 autopsy. The profile was entered into national DNA databases, but it did not immediately match any known relative or missing person. This was another dead end at the time. By the 2010s, however, a revolutionary tool was emerging in cold case investigations: genetic genealogy. This technique had famously helped solve other cold cases by identifying victims and perpetrators through familial DNA matches. The story right before this, which covers the short lives of Zeke and Zane, who were named by NYPD police officers, also covers a cold case which was solved by genetic genealogy. You can find the link in the description of this video, or it will be at the end. Nearly a decade later, in 2013, NCMC's specialized division, known as Team Adam, a group composed of retired law enforcement experts, took another look at the case, collaborating closely with local investigators. The team attempted to exhume the child's remains for further forensic analysis, but those efforts were unsuccessful. Storm damage and missing burial records from the cemetery had made locating the precise burial site impossible. As an alternative, NCMEC submitted the remaining viable hair samples to Astrea Forensics, a lab known for handling degraded and minimal DNA.
Now we knock on the door of genetic genealogy.
Long before DNA was used to solve crimes, the original detective kept a sample of the child's hair. Fast forward 5 decades. Fairfax cold case detectives took that sample to a company called Astrea Forensics in California. They developed a DNA profile that could be used for genetic genealogy.
When we opened the package, it was literally little specks, like razor stubble. And so the lab, Astrea in California, had said that normally they require at least 2 centimeters of hair to do testing. And I said, well, I don't know if I even have 2 millimeters of hair to send you. And they said, well, send it anyway, we'll see what we can do. And they were able to develop a profile.
The breakthrough continued in 2022 by building out family trees from those matches, a bit like solving a complex puzzle. Genealogists honed in on a particular family line that had a missing branch. Additionally, one family connected to those DNA matches had lived in the Washington, D.C. area in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Experts were able to trace a potential familial connection to a woman in Philadelphia, someone who appeared to be a maternal aunt of the unidentified boy. Within that family, there were recollections and records of a little boy who seemed to vanish around that time. The pieces started falling into place. Names, dates, and locations lined up with what few details were known about the John Doe. That same year, they exhumed the remains of a woman named Vera Bryant from a cemetery in Alabama. Vera had passed in 1980 and had long been buried, but investigators suspected she might have been connected to the unidentified child. With permission and coordination, they were successful in extracting DNA samples. It wasn't until another 3 years later, in August 2025, at long last, the child was no longer publicly just John Doe. He was revealed to be Carl Matthew Bryant, a young African-American boy who was born in 1968, therefore would have been only 4 years old in 1972 and 57 years old at the time of posting if he was alive today.
Law enforcement really does care about people, and it doesn't matter the time frame that it's been. The detectives from PPD were instrumental in helping us make these contacts with family members.
Police say the Bryant family is the one who further helped connect the dots. PPD helped connect them with investigators. They shared the aunt had a sister, Vera Bryant, who had 2 children, Carl and James.
The boys never returned. Vera never reconnected with family in Philly.
They didn't even know to ask about the kids because Vera didn't let them know that she was back. So that family tie had been broken at that point. The family can have some semblance of closure or resolution.
At the press conference, Carl's cousin standing alongside police, his aunt in the audience. They found it too difficult to take questions, but the detective telling us why this case was so important to her.
I have my own son, and I think most of us are parents here, and to see the extent of that boy's injuries and what he had suffered through, I'm happy to be here today announcing that at least we've identified him.
Thanks to a charitable group, the little boy did get a proper burial those many years ago at the cemetery in Fort Hunt. But in 2012, a derecho washed the marker away. Now Fairfax County Police hoping to put a bench here and to engrave on it the little boy's actual name, Carl Matthew Bryant.
Although Carl has been identified, the fate of his younger brother, James Bryant, remains one of the case's most haunting unresolved elements. James was just 6 months old when Carl was found deceased. Both children were traveling with their mother, Vera, and her boyfriend, James Hedgepeth, in June 1972. Hedgepeth was not the biological father of either child. They were traveling from Philadelphia to Virginia, but when the adults arrived in Virginia, there were no signs of Carl or James Bryant. Detectives now believe that James Bryant likely lost his life around the same time and possibly in the same sequence of events that led to Carl's passing. The couple who had traveled to Virginia returned to Pennsylvania without the children, later telling family that they were with Hedgepeth's relatives without further clarification.
Based on the fact that the couple left with children and arrived without them, they never made a report of any kids being missing. We believe that both boys may have been murdered on June 13, 1972, between Pennsylvania and Virginia. And the baby may have been discarded along the route also, but he has not ever been located.
According to police, Hedgepeth was convicted of murder in 1962 and served time in prison before he met Vera. Meanwhile, people who live near Massey Creek are also still looking for answers.
We all been wondering about it. It's like, what's been going on and like, who was it? You know, we just never knew. We just thought it was somebody from D.C., Alexander or something, you know what I mean?
Officials confirmed that Hedgepeth had a prior fatality conviction dating back to 1962 in Pennsylvania, establishing him as a violent offender well before the events in Virginia 1972. He met Vera after his release. With both Vera and Hedgepeth having passed away, Hedgepeth also in the 1980s, police believe that anyone with knowledge of the Bryant family's travel history in 1972 could be the key to finding James. They are also looking to talk to Hedgepeth's family in an effort to gather more information. Additionally, investigators shared that James Bryant's biological father was located and notified. However, no further public details have been released about his identity or involvement. No details regarding Carl's biological father have been publicly released as of this video. May the family and friends of Carl and James Bryant find solace in the happy memories, and may their souls rest in perpetual peace. Thank you.